Hi, I'm Liz with the Louisville Free Public Library, and today I'm in the Maker Lab space at the South Central Regional Library, and I'm going to show you how to make a zipper pouch. We have sewing machines here in our space, and that's what I'm going to use for our project today, but this is something you can easily hand sew as well, or if you like, come visit us and use one of the sewing machines during open hours or classes. One of my favorite easy sewing projects is zippered pouches, and you need some supplies to make those zip pouches, so I'm going to show you what you need. You'll need 2 pieces of fabric for your lining of your pouch, that's the inside of the pouch, and 2 pieces of fabric the same size for the outside of your pouch. This fabric happens to be 9 inches wide by about 7 inches tall. So this is the width I'm measuring here, and this is how tall it'll be because I'm going to have my pouch turned the other way. So that's the fabric for that. Then the zipper that I have is about 8.5 inches long. It doesn't really matter what sizes you do, you just want to cut your fabric a little bit wider than your zipper. You'll also need needle and thread. I am going to be using a sewing machine to do some of my sewing. So for using a sewing machine, I want to make sure I have a zipper foot. And you know that it's a zipper foot because it only has the one prong on it compared to the normal standard foot, which has 2 prongs. So I don't want to use the standard foot, I want to use the zipper foot. So if you're using a sewing machine, make sure you get out your zipper foot for this project. Then you'll need a pair of scissors. I recommend fabric scissors, particularly if you're going to be doing a lot of sewing projects. It really just cuts the fabric so much better than any other pair of scissors. And then optionally, you can use pins to keep your fabric together as you sew, but that is optional. Some experienced sewers may not use the pins at all. Anytime you do a sewing project and you use fabric, one thing that you'll want to be aware of, particularly with this zippered pouch project, or if you're making clothing or anything like that, you want to know which is the right side of the fabric and which is the wrong side of the fabric. So here I have both pieces of fabric laying right sides up. And when we say wrong side, that's the fabric that the print is not on, so it looks a little faded compared to the fabric. This one is harder to tell because it is more of a linen fabric, so I recommend using cotton fabrics for most of your sewing projects. And that's what this fabric is here on the left side. The blue fabric is a cotton fabric, and it's easier to tell the wrong side of that fabric versus the right side. So when I say right side, I mean correct side of the fabric. That's the side that you want facing out. That's the pretty side. And then the faded side is what's going to go inside. So for your zip pouch, you're going to have your zipper, the right side of your zipper. You see that's where you have the pull on your zipper. You're going to have that facing the right side of your fabric. So the blue fabric is going to be my outside of my pouch, and I'm putting the zipper face down onto that right side of fabric. And then for that inside piece, I'm going to lay that face down on top of that and move these other pieces out of the way. I'm just doing one side of the pouch at a time. If you were hand sewing, you could go ahead and stitch the pieces of fabric with the zipper sandwiched between. I am going to be machine sewing, so I only want to do one side at a time just so I can see better what I'm working with. But again, if you're hand sewing, you could just put the 3 pieces together and do a whip stitch down this side at a time. So I have my zipper face down on the correct side of my fabric, my right side of my fabric. And then I have red thread on my machine. Normally, if I were making this project, I would not use red. I would match my colors. but I want to be able to show you the stitching, so I'm using red thread. And then I have my zipper foot attached to my machine, as you can see. When you're all ready to sew, you just want to place your fabric and zipper on top of the needle plate and then line it up under the foot, and then you'll put the foot down to hold your fabric in place as you sew. I have my opening on my zipper foot here on the left because my zipper is going to be going on the left. So if you were hand sewing, you wouldn't need to worry about this, but when you're machine sewing, you want to make sure you have your zipper foot open to the correct side. It doesn't matter which side you do, it just matters that you have your fabric and your zipper on whatever the open side of your zipper foot is. You want to guide your zipper and fabric, particularly when machine sewing, just to make sure everything turns out okay. We're going to stop when we reach the end of the zipper, and then we're going to pull it out and take a look at it. If your loops on the back side of your zipper look a little funky, but everything is holding okay, you should be fine. Sometimes with machine sewing zippers, it does that. But when you open it up, this is the side you're going to see. And so everything with that looks fine. You can press against it and it's not pulling away. It's attached good, so that's good. So once you have the zipper attached to the first piece of fabric, you want to do the lining piece for that side of the pouch. So I'm going to take my lining piece, this is the right side of the fabric, and I'm going to flip it over to where it is on top of that stitch that we did. And we're basically going to put in a stitch in the exact same spot, but we will have the right sides of the fabric facing each other. So this is the good side, this is the good side. They're facing each other with the zipper sandwiched in between. So we're finished with the first side of our zipper pouch. We have the lining fabric facing the outer fabric with the zipper in between, and we've put in that stitch there. So what we'll see in the finished product is this zipper will be on top, this is your outside fabric, and this is your lining fabric. Now we want to focus on putting the fabric to the other side of the zipper, so I'm just going to put those two pieces on the left side and get my next pieces for this side of the zipper. So again, we are doing the right side facing the zipper, so on top of the zipper here, we're going to line up our fabric with that line, and then the other piece of lining we'll do after. Okay, so we attached the next piece of the pouch to that other side of the zipper, so I'm going to show you what this looks like. So you've got the zipper between, and these are the good sides all facing each other, and then on the other side you have the one piece of lining, and we're going to do the same thing with the second piece of lining. So it's easiest to have all your fabric on the one side of the zipper as you're sewing to keep everything out of the way, and then the piece that you're attaching is going to go the farthest to the right here of the zipper. And if you've got extra threads, you can cut those off. But I'm just going to line up my lining piece, and it's the good side of the lining facing the good side of the lining, and the zipper sandwiched between everything there. And line it up and then do a stitch in the exact same place. I'm almost finished with sewing my zipper to my fabrics, but I wanted to talk about what happens when you get to the zipper pull, because it can kind of change your stitch. So you just want to be wary of where the zipper pull is, and then kind of guide your fabric so that it stays in a straight line that you're sewing, instead of having a bump in your fabric because of the zipper pull being in the way. So I just like to put my hand there and continue sewing so that it stays straight. Okay, we finished that stitch on our zipper pouch. So what you have now is you've got lining and lining, opposite sides of the zipper, and then if I flip it over, I've got the outer part and the outer part on opposite sides of the zipper. And so as you can see, we've got lining and the outside, and then lining in the outside, and the zipper is in the middle of everything. So the next part you're going to do is sew around the edges of the pouch. So you're going to sew the blue sides together on the edges and the bottom and the other side. So we want to prepare our piece for that, and we're going to put the blue sides together, and then we're going to sew this edge, and this edge. After you finish the zipper portion of the zip pouch, you can switch the foot back to your regular presser foot instead of the zipper foot. Both sides of the zipper have a bumper to prevent the zipper from going too far. So we're going to try to take our stitch as close to that bumper as we can get when we sew down the side of our zip pouch. So I'm remembering that the bumper is here. You can put a pin there to mark the spot. I'm going to put that fabric back, and we are going to move the bumper under the presser foot, and I'm going to press that down, and I'm going to sew down from that spot, trying to get it as close as I can. You don't want to go too close because you don't want your needle to end up running into the bumper, which is a little piece of metal, and then you could break your needle. So it doesn't look like it because the zipper is sort of lifting it up, but my presser foot is down on the part that I'm going to start sewing, and I'm going to sew a straight line down. Once I get to the bottom of the fabric, I'm going to stop, and then at this point I'm going to turn my pouch and sew the next line. One good sewing tip when you are turning your fabric is to drop your needle down, and then you can lift the foot, turn your fabric, and put the foot back down, and then you can continue on sewing. So once you reach the end of that, you're going to turn the fabric again, and I tried to line up where I stopped with the bumper on the other side of the zipper so that when I turn it, I'm not going to run into the zipper or anything. You can see it's right there. Okay, so I did the 3 sides of my pouch. That's the outer side of my pouch. And you can see that the margins are because of where the bumper is on the ends of the zipper. And then very, very important step. You want to unzip your zipper to continue so that you can flip it. Okay, so I had to unzip my zipper. To do that, I opened up the lining piece and got my fingers in there and unzipped. You could also unzip it before you do that outside fabric. I just like keeping everything straight, and the zipper helps when it's closed, but for this next part, you really need it to be open. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to do the sides of the pouch, but we're going to leave an opening here so that we can turn everything the right way. Because if we just sewed the sides, we wouldn't be able to get into our pouch at all. So we need to leave an opening here just as we left an opening with the zipper. So I'm gonna leave an opening on this end, not too big, but about that big, about that long. So I sewed the side of the lining and a little bit in, and then I'm leaving this part open, and I'm gonna pick up my stitch again right here and do this side. So I have finished the sewing part on the inside of the zipper pouch, and now I'm ready to flip it inside out, which is the fun part, and then we'll just do some finishing. I would recommend trimming off any of the extra thread pieces, and then you can trim the fabric. You don't want to trim too closely to the stitch. You want to leave a little bit of hem like along the bottom here, but you can go ahead and trim the sides of the fabric away, and then you can put a little divot in the corner just to kind of help when we turn the corners inside out, to help them be nice and straight. So our pouch is looking tidier. I did trimming on the sides and then put my little divots here in the four corners. And then you want to trim away that fabric on the sides just so it doesn't add bulk to your zipper pouch. And then where we left it open, we are going to turn everything the right way through that hole. So we are going to feed everything through that hole. So it doesn't look like much yet, but I am pulling the zipper pouch through that hole so that we can have our nice clean side of the pouch visible. And then the side with the stitching is going to be the inside. So pull everything all the way out. So we pulled everything out, and I am just going to, from the inside, stick my finger in the corners to make them nice and straight on the pouch. So I'm gonna pop the corner out so that I get a nice straight corner. And I'm gonna do that on the other side also. So this is what I mean about the corners being nice and straight. That's because I stuck my finger in to pull them out. And then the lining is gonna get stuffed into the zipper pouch after we close up this hole that we left. So we're gonna take the lining and we're going to sew where the hole was. So here's our pouch, we're almost done. This is where some hand sewing could win the day, because hand sewing gives you more control and you can have more finesse with a project like this. I prefer the machine just because it's faster, but if you were hand sewing this hole on the lining, you could do a blind stitch and then you wouldn't see anything. But since it's the inside of the pouch, I'm not going to worry about it too much. It is probably important that you do a matching color thread, but again, I'm using red thread just so you can see everything. So I'm gonna fold those sides in on each other where that hole was and just kind of line it up. And then we're gonna put in a stitch to cover that hole. So I'm folding the sides on each other just so it's nice edges. And then I'll put a stitch there. So this is my stitch on the lining of my fabric to close up the hole. And then I'm just gonna tie off the pieces of thread and then trim that. And then you're just gonna tuck everything into your completed zip pouch. So we finished off the hole in the lining and we're just going to tuck that in. And that is our zipper pouch. Totally done. And you can press it with an iron if you're worried about wrinkles. Zipper pouches are fun because you can make almost any size that you want. It just depends on what kind of zipper size you've got. And then you can do coordinating fabric, and it's fun. I always think to have a little surprise fabric on the inside. And so that's where I was going with this piece.